Welcome to Honest Whispers Preview for Sale. On this video, I'll be previewing DC75 DC Origins Series 2 Collector Action Figures Wonder Woman, released by DC Direct on November 17th, 2010. Both figures are approximately 6.5 inches tall. Both figures come with the base. Both comes with the detachable golden lasso. And it comes with a collectible character card. I'm going to go over 6 different categories to preview this. First category is design. Covers the concept, the look, and the points of articulations. And as you can see on the back, the concept is about DC Origins. All the figures in the same product line come with 2 figures. One for the older age era, and then one for the current or modern age, at least the time of release of these figures, as it says here, from early appearances to the modern era. But both these figures are rehashed figures or re-released figures. As you can see on the background, I do have the original release. This is the Silver Age Wonder Woman and Wonder Girl Deluxe Action Figure Set. This was released back in August 22nd, 2001, and then it was re-released again, or rather re-released 2 more times in the reactivated line, Series 2 and Series 4, on November 15th, 2006 and March 12th, 2008 respectively. And then the modern age era, you can see here, is from the Justice League of America Series 3 action figure. And this was released back in January 7th, 2009. So little under 2 years before the DC Origins set was released. So this isn't all original or anything, but then you can see here, main difference of course is the color or the painting. And then for the Silver Age, there are some subtle differences that was made over the 4 releases. So this is actually a 3rd head sculpt. So the face, for me, I think it improved greatly. For me, my first impression of her face is that she does look good. It is, I guess the right word for it would be pretty. I think she does have that nice classic era look as well. And as you can see, just to do a slight comparison of the original release, the face, you can see eyes are a bit larger, and then lips a little wider, I guess. And you can see here, eyes are a bit smaller, lips is a bit more narrow. I mean, it's not that much narrow, but still slight difference. And it just has a nicer shape, I think, overall. And then main difference here with the Silver Age era is that the original one doesn't have as many points of articulations. Rather, in fact, the 2 DC Origins, they both have 11 points of articulations. 1 at the neck, 2 shoulders, 2 elbows, 2 wrists, 2 legs or hips, and 2 knees. The modern era one is exactly the same. Neck, shoulders, elbows, wrists, legs, and knees. While the original Silver Age version only had 7 points of articulations. 1 at the neck, 2 shoulders, 2 arms, which you can see it's cut at the bicep area, like a G.I. Joe figure would have, and 2 wrists, which the hands on this figure is detachable and comes with alternate hands. And you can see the legs, no points of articulation, and looks much more smooth. It just looks better overall, as the points of articulation tends to create, I guess, some bad, some okay seam lines. And just to point it out, you can see here, it's like her hip bone's kind of like sticking out on her right side. And then There is a small gap here between the left leg and her crotch. And then her right knee just doesn't fit right. So you could see part of her like thigh or the upper knee area. Basically, it's just sticking out a bit on both sides too. While you look at her left leg and it fits so much better. Not perfect, but better. And the problem with these points of articulations or joints is that it's really unnecessary, because the only thing you could really do with these is to make sure that the feet are both feet are flat on the ground. The ones without the joints already does it without any, without moving the joints or even the use of joints. This one, if you bend the legs, or if you try to make it look like she's kneeling or sitting, it's going to look awkward because they're all hinge joints and they're only going to bend in the direction that they're fixed in. So usually something like this or this, if you make it look like she's sitting down, it looks awkward because her knees will stay spread apart and then her feet will come together like when it's bent in, because of the angle that the joints are positioned at. So again, very unnecessary. If it didn't have the joints, it would look nice and smooth like this, which I would prefer. Unless it's like a true action figure with like ball joints, where you could do a lot of nice different poses. But if it's hinge joints like this, again, very unnecessary. The only thing you could really pose with would be the arms. And even the arms, you can see, at least with the Silver Age, since it doesn't have elbow joints, it looks nice and smooth. This one, the joints kind of stick out like a sore thumb. It's not too bad, but again, I would say it just looks better without it. Even the joints for the modern era in comparison with the Silver Age, it looks more subtle, well hidden. Like for instance, the hinge joints itself, it looks like it's sculpted to the shape of the forearm to blend in better. While this one, it's almost like they just shaped it out. Like you could see the joints are shaped out, so it doesn't really blend in as part of the forearm. So I just want to kind of show you this one as well. Like the joints and everything is the same, but again, unnecessary and probably would have been better without it. And that's why for the design score, as there are some improvements and I would say some good improvements and some bad improvements, I give the design score for both figures an 8 out of 10. Next category is sculpting. Covers the details, quality of the sculpt, quality of the mold. And starting with the top, the hair is very nice. A lot of nice details, makes it look realistic. Again, the head sculpt has changed. This, for me, out of all the Silver Age ones that was released, this is my favorite head sculpt. And you can see the hair itself. It looks like it's a bit shorter, or it's sticking out back more. So you can see how it's kind of lifted up, and then there's spacing between the hair and her shoulders. While when you look at the original sculpt, her hair does flow down past her shoulders, so probably won't be able to turn her neck as much, which really doesn't matter. And overall sculpt is not bad, but at least for the Silver Age, you can see that her arms a little bit unproportioned. especially when you look at her left arm. Her upper arm is longer, and not just a little bit, it's significantly longer than her forearm. So it looks a little bit off. At least for the original, it has the similar length and kind of unproportioned as well, but because it doesn't have a joint, really it's harder to tell. But this one, because it has a joint, a hinge joint, so you know where it's, the elbow starts and where it ends. Even her right arm, you could definitely tell that her upper arm is longer. Now, in comparison with the modern era, you could see how her upper arm is about the same length as her forearm. Again, upper arm about the same length as the forearm. That's why when you look at it from afar, this one, the modern era one, looks definitely more proportionally correct or anatomically correct, while this one just slightly off. Yeah, I'm sure if you straighten out the arms, it might even pass the midpoint of her thighs, which would definitely be like long arms, kind of. Now, again, I did show you this in the design category, but again, the execution on the joints, especially that right knee, very bad. The gap isn't too bad, especially when you look from afar, but it's definitely noticeable when you're looking at it up close. The modern era one, the joints are much better. Everything looks like it fits better, although you could see here slightly, like the inner part, you can see it kind of sticks out, so it doesn't lay flat, unlike the one on the right. And then of course the neck joint for this probably won't be able to do much because the hair gets in the way with the shoulder, so won't be able to turn as much as the one from the Silver Age. Now, as far as sculpt quality, or like the molding quality, basically overall for DC Direct is pretty good, but you can see some seam lines where like the two molds come together. Right here, you can see right there, there's that seam line, and it kind of fades. It's too bad they couldn't do that for the rest, and that's very subtle though. Well, once I start going down, you could see some imperfections, like indented lines, like right there on her belt. Going straight down, there's like a little dimple right there. If I could get a better focus on the right side, and then right here on the edge, you can see right there, almost like before it dried and hardened, it looks like maybe somebody slightly touched it or something and just kind of misshaped right there. There's a very noticeable indented line right here on her upper right thigh. If I could get that nice focus. And on her left thigh, nothing, you can't really see anything, but then again you could see the seam line. The two molds come together right down her left thigh right there, and then the right thigh has it too, although it's harder to see with the shadow. But if I can get that nice angle and focus, it's a bit harder to tell. Otherwise, I mean, everything else looks pretty good. I mean, the details for the costume is amazing. especially for a figure like the breastplate, the eagle. That looks nice. Even the boots stayed the same, but I do like the old laced up looking boots. Here's a better look. It's pretty much the same mold, same shape, same everything, other than joint. Now for the modern era one, everything looks proportionally good. I think the face looks kind of, it's more on the ugly side, if I had to be honest. Between a scale of 1 to 10, and if 5 is just average, where it's not neither good or bad, I would say this is around 4 as far as the face goes. You can see just the eyes and the way the lips, it's just a bit unproportioned. She looks like she has really big lips. Now with the original one, same sculpt, but I think the paint job for the DC Origins one just makes the face look better, but the sculpt is exactly the same. But the details, again, with the hair, this one's really nice. I like the hair on the modern one. And I really love the costume details for the modern era one. Looking at the breastplate, nice defined, definitive lines. And then my favorite part is like these little wrinkles on her corset. You can see right there under her breasts. It looks very realistic. Even right here in the seam lines, you could see how you could see those stretch marks of the fabric on the seam lines. It's very subtle, but looks really nice. Even right here on the lower part, you could see a little bit more of the natural wrinkling. And then rest is pretty much simple. Bracelet, Star Spangled panties. The belt is nice, but you could see, well, actually, that looks like more of a paint issue than a molding issue. So I'll come back to that. But the legs, overall, the muscle details are okay. I'm not going to say good, because when I look at the thigh right here, it's like a little bit too much. Especially like right here in the inner right thighs. There's just too many muscle lines because it's inconsistent. When you look at the left thigh, it's more smooth. I know there's a lot of reflection going on here, so let me try to get that better angle and distance so you can see the differences. The original one has the same exact mold, so you can see here the way the muscles are over defined on the right leg and then not as much on the left leg. And then for me, it gets kind of worse when I start looking at the knees. I'll start with the left knee. You can see this, it's like indented line, but then it's intentionally there, but I just feel like it's too thick, or not really thick, but it's just too deep. And I don't know, if it was more subtle, like a little bit more rounded off, it would look better, but right there it just seems a bit much. And then when you look at her right knee, this part looks really bad. And I can't help but think it's like I'm looking at a dog bite wound where part of the flesh or muscle has been ripped off. So after it healed over, it kind of left that little dent on her knee. And then you could see the seam line once again, right here, going straight down, seam line right here. This one, you could see it better than at least this one I was trying to show you. This one, it's not too bad, and you can only see it when really up close. but that chewed up knee definitely is noticeable. And then you can see little bumps here and there. Almost looks like she has little tiny warts, maybe pimples, but definitely could have, you know, shaved that off easily before they, I don't know, decided to paint it or something. But either way, it's very small. And that's why, you know, it's not too bad. I mean, for the modern era, it's exactly the same sculpt as the original. This one, the way I see it, the head is an improvement, but then the joints are pretty bad. And then this being unproportioned originally from the start, but adding that joint to the elbow just makes the, I guess, the unproportional look even more noticeable. So it's a bit unfortunate, and that's why I give the sculpting score for both figures a 7 out of 10. Next category is colors. Covers the accuracy of the colors, quality of the paint application. And the most noticeable thing you'll see here compared to both of its original releases is the better looking paint job. And the reason for that is because of the nice gloss finish or the metallic paint that they used compared to the matte finished ones. So rather than just the yellow, you see a nice shiny metallic gold. Even the bustier or the corset, the red, the way it has a nice glossy metallic finish, has a very nice shine to it. And even the Star Spangled Panties, it has a nice shine to it. But for me, I just feel like the color they used is a little bit too dark. Even with the original release, it is more like a navy blue, and you can see that this one has a nice glossy finish too. But then this being even darker than the original release, almost looks, I can't say it's almost looks black, but from a certain distance and angle, it does kind of look black. And has less of a shine to it compared to the original release. And then the rest, the boots are pretty accurate. Now for the Silver Age, overall it is very accurate, but then they didn't use metallic paint for the breastplate on the Silver Age era, but they did use silver metallic paint for the belt, while the original is just plain white. Now the stars, because of the points of articulations here on their legs, you can see how there's a lot more spacing going on. Some of the stars are even hidden behind the joint itself. And while the Silver Age, it's nice laid out. It's just, you know, you don't see any stars. That's kind of like, I guess, either partially missing or just like offset like this right here on her crotch. The stars, because of the joint, you can see part of the star is cut off. You're not going to get that with this because there's no lines that separate the leg and the crotch. Now the silver, okay, the bracelets, rather than silver, they use kind of like a gunmetal dark gray type of color, which is okay, but I would have rather liked it to be more like this silver right here. It just has that more of an accurate look to it. I don't know if they just looked at this picture and thought, hey, it's kind of black, let's just do it like, you know, I don't know what the reasoning was. But as far as paint application goes, for a DC Direct, it's not that bad. You can see maybe here the red star doesn't fill in all the way, especially right there our right side of that star. You could see that sculpted line, a lot of gold in that spacing. Just to compare, this one looks a little bit better as it's filled out. The eyes look great. Overall, it's symmetrical. Nice color on the lips. Everything nicely painted. You could even see the earrings nicely painted. Not too much bleeding, but then there is a bit of a gold paint smudging here, right there on her right breast. It's very hard to tell because it's just very light, and it's not the reflection of the light either. And there's another spot of gold paint right here on the left side of her stomach. And you can see the belt, some bleeding. Red is bleeding onto the edge of the belt. And then some bleeding here, flesh color bleeding into the bracelet. There's flesh color on the edge of the bracelet, which isn't bad as long as it's a consistent line and not like squiggly lines or anything like that. Her Star Spangled shorts, overall nicely painted, but you might see a little, almost looks like a, well, I thought that was a paint error, but then you know what, looking at it now, it looks like a little bump and more of a mold issue than a paint error. Because when I'm looking at it, it looks like I might have miscounted 2 more points of articulations. Because looking at the thighs, it does look like she's able to move or twist it or turn it. So definitely Silver Age would be 13 points of articulation rather than 11. Boots overall, especially where the laces are, not bad. Overall, nice, consistent. Might see maybe slight bleeding on the edge of the lace or ribbon right there compared to a right boot where it doesn't have that same flesh color bleeding. Now for the modern age, overall, again with this, great, but then you can see that the eyes are a little bit off. It looks like her right eye is a bit high. It just seems like, or smaller. And one of the reasons for that too is because if you look at the eyeliner or the outline of her left eye, it's very thick and bold, while the outline of her right eye is light and thinner, which you can even tell from a bit of a distance here. Now the lips, the coloring itself is okay, but then the color, I just feel like the lips or the lipstick color is a bit too dark. I would have preferred something more of a bright red, kind of like the original release. And for the costume, I love the metallic paint, as I mentioned before. And then some bleeding here and there, but very subtle. You might see some gold bleeding right there, compared to here where it's like right on the line. And then the belt. What I noticed is that they either didn't use, or I guess like the brush maybe, I don't know what they used, but looks like just wasn't enough gold. And here, I'll show you what I'm talking about. If you look at the color of the tiara, the breastplate, it has a nice gold shine to it. And then when you look at the belt, rather than gold, it's orange. So my assumption looking at this is that they painted the corset all red, then they painted the gold on top of it. But it's almost like they didn't have enough gold for the belt, and that's why the base color of the red is kind of showing through. And that's why you get more of that orange looking belt rather than a gold looking, gold colored belt. And then the stars, you could see It's not bad, especially compared to the Silver Age one, where it's just like, you know, stars are cut off. This one, they try to make it so that it kind of continues, but you could see certain areas, it just splits apart. Doesn't look that great, or as good as it should be, because when you look at the original one, the stars are a bit smaller and they're more strategically placed so that they avoid the seam lines. In this one, so again, just to kind of compare it, you get 2 stars going up and down, or you could see 3 stars going, you know, across. This one, 3 stars going up and down, and it does have 3 stars going across, but it's more higher. The placement is higher. So yeah, definitely I would say they should have kept it the same. It's almost like it got worse. And then for the rest of the paint application, the boots overall is done nicely, but then you could see some white bleeding onto the red right there on the inner part. And then for the outer part of her right leg, you can see the same white line kind of bleeding onto the red area. Otherwise, the paint or the coloring is pretty good, especially for a DC Direct. And that's why I give the color score for both figures 7 out of 10. Okay, next category is packaging. Covers the design, the look, and the functionality, of course. And you can see that this is a blister card packaging, or some like to call it bubble card. It is nice overall, and it does what it's supposed to do. It does keep the figure safe, and overall I do like the layout or the look or design, and it's all consistent with the other figures from the same product line. You have the logos on the top. It has a nice background where it shows all these old comic covers, and then it's individualized with these paper inserts. You can see here with the title, the name, the 2 pictures, the Silver Age picture and the Modern Age picture. You can see that here on the side with the Silver Age on top, Modern Age middle, DC Direct logo on the bottom. Slightly different on the other side, as you see that the Modern is on top, Silver Age middle, and this one is a DC logo rather than DC Direct. And then the back is pretty much the same, or not pretty much, it is the same for all the other characters. So there's no individualism here. Like, for instance, if you're looking at the back of the Superman figures, then you're gonna see the exact same layout, basically. It has the information for all the other figures as well, or characters, and then it has the one that was already released, or Series 1. And then the top is, you know, just blank, and bottom is also just clear as well. Now, blister cards are a bit hard to take care of because the tabs like this can get bent and create creases, or even right here on the corners. So it does, compared to just a simple box like this where you could stack it with other boxes, you can't really do the same with that. But one good thing about blister card packaging, especially if you don't want to open the packaging, is that you could use like a wall pin, nail, or a thumbtack on the wall, and then basically hang it, and then it will lay flat against the wall, so you could save a lot of shelf wear and still display, you know, your collectibles, especially the ones in the blister card packaging, against the wall where it won't really take up any spaces. And lastly, for the design, if you look at the blister card design or the shape of it, it kind of goes in and out. And when you look at it closely, it's basically the shape of an open book. And I thought that was pretty nice touch to it, especially since this is supposed to be like a DC Origins, you know, old era, new era. And if you look even closer, you could see right here on this, on the edge, it's supposed to look like pages. It's supposed to look like pages of the book. So I really like that blister card design, rather than something simple like a rectangle or maybe you know, half a cylinder like this. Although that half a cylinder looks nice too, but can't beat it if it's supposed to shape, you know, it's supposed to be a shape of something. So that's why I give the packaging score a near perfect 9 out of 10. Next category is value. Covers pretty much the suggested retail price versus the aftermarket price. Or in other words, is this a good investment? And when this first came out 10 years ago, it retailed around, I believe, $30 or $35. I don't know for sure, but I do know it's around that ballpark. And the reason why I don't know is because this thing sold out, I would say, about a month or 2 months from the date of its release. It was really hard to find, and the price jumped I guess close to $50, and that's about the price that I bought this for. I can't remember the shipping cost, but roughly around $50 to $60, I guess, with tax and shipping included. Now this is, not many are listed. This is right now, I'm seeing a lot of listings for about, not a lot, but the only listing I saw was for $75 plus like $10, $15 for the shipping. I listed this for $80 and sold it for $75 plus shipping at like $7 and change, so a little over $80 the total price. So after 10 years, went about 50% in value, or I guess from the price I bought it for, 50%, but about 100%, a little over from its original price, and that's pretty good. Not great, but good. And that's why I give the value score a solid 7 out of 10. Final categories overall. It accumulates the 5 prior categories: design, sculpting, colors, packaging, and value. And this one, overall, I do like it a lot. Unfortunately, it isn't like an original product because, again, it's a re-release, and then both are a bit different, especially even with its history. For me, I do like both figures overall, so definitely wouldn't buy them if I didn't like them. But then now, out of all the releases or the variations, if I had to pick and choose, I would definitely choose the Silver Age one, and that's more due to the preference of not having, you know, points of articulations on the leg, and just having that smoother, nicer look overall. But I do like the paint overall on the new figure, and then of course the head sculpt or the face, I like this one a lot better than the original one. Now for the modern era one, it's pretty much the same, and if I had to pick, I would definitely pick this one first. The colors are way better. The metallic color, just the way it shines and reflects the light, just makes it so much look better. And even quality wise, it looks like a higher quality item when I compare the two side by side. So for the ones like me who bought these first and then bought this, well, basically, I guess it would be better if I didn't buy the original ones and I bought the DC Origins one only. Then, you know, would have definitely, I don't know. I guess it all depends on the person and what their preference is. But it's one of those, it just feels like a movie's released, and then later on, like 5 years later, they release a better version, like a better DVD or Blu-ray version. And that's kind of what it feels like with this. And that's why I give the overall score an 8 out of 10. So let me put this back. And now to recap: design, 8 out of 10. Sculpting, 7 out of 10. Colors, 7 out of 10. Packaging, 9 out of 10. Value, 7 out of 10. And overall, 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching. Until next time. Continue reading the King James Version Bible and eat your vitamin C's daily.